Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thank you for staying with us. It's finally the second hour of the show, and it's time for the studio conversation as we evaluate the latest political intrigues that are playing out in the country. From the no-holds-barred interview with President William Ruto held yesterday at Sagana State Lodge, to the rebuttal by the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, not forgetting the Mt.Kenya development tour that seems to have starred the restive region. We'll equally focus on the parliamentary in-tray, bearing in mind that legislators, as of today, are set to get a pay rise. Is it real? We'll be listening from the horse's mouth. I have two legislators here with me. Allow me to introduce them to you. Kasim Tandaza is joining us in studio. He's a member of parliament from Matuga constituency. Kasim, karibu sana to the studios.
It's always a pleasure to be with the studios with you, Jesse. Thank you for inviting me after some bit of time.
It's been quite some time. Is it safe to say Eid Mubarak, or it's already water under the bridge?
No.
Okay,
you are
Eid
still,
Mubarak.
Yeah,
Asante sana for your time. Equally joined by Member of Parliament for Yatta constituency, Robert Basil. Thank you so much for your time. Karibu sana bana.
Thank you. Long time.
Yes.
Happy New Year. Last time
we saw each other was last year.
Last year,
Asante sana for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're set to canvass a couple of issues that have played out in the political arena. So let's get right to it. First of all, we want to react to President William Ruto's interview with vernacular stations held just yesterday, where the president shed light on a couple of issues. Most importantly, the events that led to the impeachment of his former deputy Rigathi Gachagua, claiming that the fallout stemmed from internal conflicts within the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And according to the president, Gachagua's confrontational approach resulted in hostilities with lawmakers, ultimately costing him his position. Ruto equally revealed that the former deputy president actually demanded 10 billion Kenya shillings from him in order to rally support for the president in the Mount Kenya region. Let's listen to these claims that were made by the president yesterday.
Wabunge wakaanza vita kwa sababu wameambiwa wasipopiga magoti, nasikia wataenda nyumbani. So ikafika mahali hapo, sasa nikaelezana na huyu bwana, sasa my friend, please punguza vita na hawa watu wote. Sasa ikanifikia mimi, mimi sasa, unajua, mimi naweza kukufanya one term president. Usipofanya hii, usipofanya hii, nahitaji bilioni 10. Wewe unajua bilioni 10, bwana Waweru?
Labda zilikuwa za nini rais? Bilioni
10 ndio niende niongee na watu ya mlimani, you know, ni kupangie siasa, sijui nifanye nini. Mimi nikaona hapa nikamwambia I will not do it. Wacha nimalize. So nikamwambia hii haiwezekani. Na kama ni kuwa one term ni sawa, hakuna problem. Kama wewe ndio kuamua nani atakuwa one term, nani atakuwa sijui how many terms, nilikuwa nafikiri ni wananchi wa Kenya na Mungu.
Well, that's the comment by President William Ruto just yesterday. And the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua had a chance of rebuttal through his X account, of course, disparaging those remarks that were made by the president and going ahead to call the president a liar, quote unquote. Let's just take a look at that tweet. There you have it. I am now convinced more than ever before that pathological lying is a mental disorder. The greatest existential threat to a beloved country is outright lying to the people of Kenya without blinking, and failure by a leader to put his team together to harmonize their lies. I weep for my country, Kenya. That's a good place to begin. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I'd like your take on this issue, because this is the first time that the president has addressed the former deputy president's impeachment, at least in public and in such detail. If what the president said is anything to go by, that is simply blackmail by the former deputy president for lack of better words. Kasim, beginning with you, what do you make of these allegations that are fronted by the head of state and the former deputy in regards to the impeachment process?
Thank you, Jesse. I will not take them to be allegations. From where I sit, I will take it to be the truth. Because these are the people who will sit together, dine together, move together as president and deputy president. And I'm not surprised from the way the deputy before impeachment was behaving. You remember, this is the same person who would basically want everything for Murima. I don't know where they come from, Murima, if you'll be offended by that one. But that is the fact. It has been on record that all his speeches, all his addresses, and he was so shameless that I shared a podium with him in Lamu. And you know, Lamu, we have one constituency basically with quite a number of people from Mlima, that is Lamu West. And he would speak his vernacular in Lamu County, talking to his people of Mlima, that he is there for them. So if it came to a point where he was asking for 10 billion, I will not be surprised. I will not think that is an allegation. And remember, before the impeachment, he went ahead, I think not once, not twice, asking for pardon from the president. Can you forgive me if I wronged you? So for sure, for someone to ask for pardon, he must have been quite aware that at one point he certainly wronged the president and wronged Kenyans, because we are talking about the presidency here. If he was to be given the 10 billion, certainly it wouldn't be from someone's pocket. It is not easy to get 10 billion, even from your pocket, to give to someone. That means these were taxpayers' monies. And just specifically for one region, to talk to them. Not even probably asking for 10 billion for roads or for anything. In any case, I don't think they need any more roads anyway, compared to other counties. When you compare to Kwale County, I'm on record, and I want to be on record. I have a constituency spanning over 100 kilometers with the 16 kilometers of roads. You see, that is the reality as we speak now. 16 kilometers of tarmac. Yeah, of course, the others are the earth roads, but essentially, when you are talking about a road, it should be the tarmac road, 16 kilometers.
Okay.
But that is the situation that we had. For the deputy president now, he can say all what he wants to say. Remember, even when he came during impeachment, he was trying to exonerate himself, meaning that he would have been happier if he was still forgiven and been. I wonder if we would be saying what he's saying now. So these are sour grapes. You know, Kiswahili tunasema it reaches a point where kama huwezi kulipata unasema ile ni bovu limeoza, si ndio? Because you can't get it anymore. But I hope going forward we'll never have such a leader of either of the stage of the deputy president or even us as leaders, as parliamentarians, where we'll be thinking of just one region when we know that Kenya is united, where we'll just be thinking about our own tribes, our own ethnic, especially when you have a position. Okay. You see, you are supposed to use that position for the good of everybody. But for the person in the name of Gachagua, we never saw that in the 2 years that he was holding that office. Okay, Basil, your reaction to the push and pull between the president and the former deputy president?
Well, I think from onset, first, I'm not a member of UDA, so I don't know exactly. Because the press talks of the Gachagua asking for 10 billion, which is a lot of money. He talked of 16 kilometers with the tarmac. In Yatta, we have less than 10 with the tarmac. So the level of marginalization that has been there from 1963 is gross. And you know, it is so disheartening when the country is grappling with economic hardship. You hear of someone asking for 10 billion. At the same time, the president, he did not even tell us where was the source of this 10 billion. Was it coming from an itemized budget? Remember, we have been talking all through that we need to have our budget itemized. Because the moment you itemize your budget, you know where your money is going to. As a taxpayer, that will promote accountability and transparency. But simply because we just lump the budget together, then it means there's so much which we don't know. Perhaps that could be happening without our knowledge. Because you can imagine 10 billion being asked by an individual, and you have hospitals that cannot provide healthy services to needy Kenyans. We have students who cannot get even the loan, the help loan, for them to continue pursue learning. We have teachers who have not received their capitation monies. So there is so much to be desired in such a conversation. And I find it so strange. It's bizarre to listen to such a story coming from the two centers of authority. Because assume there was no disgruntlement and the president gave out that 10 billion. You can imagine how much money getting lost. And what difference would that money make to the economy of this country and to transform lives of people? So I find it to be hilarious. And actually, I don't even understand why this was not used as part of the reasons for impeachment. Remember the reasons that were crafted in the motion that was brought to the House?
Yeah.
There was no mention of asking for resources or exchange of money. I think, the president should have put it as one of the reasons because it would have shed more light to Kenyans. Let's not play around with this country. Remember, we are here as leaders. Others will come after us. And generations to come will judge us based on what we have done. What was the reason for forefathers, the people who died fighting for this country to have sovereignty? Yet, 61 years down the line, we are still talking of the same issues that were spoke back in the days, So I find it very perturbing, It's disturbing to listen to such a story. And I think the president should actually explain more. If indeed this gentleman asked for 10 billion, where was this money coming from? Because it shows maybe there are other transactions that has been happening. And that's why someone of a stage of a deputy president perhaps would ask for such resources, because to me it is strange.
It leaves more questions than
yes,
answers.
Absolutely.
And we definitely hope for some moments of clarity, even as the president continues with his tour of the Mt.Kenya region. But even as we talk about accountability, should we hold the president's words to account? Because just yesterday, he hinted that the push and pull between Kenya and Sudan has not cost us in any way, shape or form in terms of tea exports to Sudan. Just after he said that, the embassy of Sudan in Kenya came through with a statement saying that, as a matter of fact, it's not true what the president has said, that we have indeed stopped bringing in imports from Kenya due to that tiff that played out not too long ago in terms of Kenya sort of giving room to RSF to sort of have a meeting right here in Kenya. What do you make of the president's statements that ever so often don't seem to be backed by facts? Case in point, this particular issue about tea exports to Sudan.
You see, Jesse, I'm surprised at your line of thinking that what the president said is not factual. What is factual is what the embassy said. You know, so when the president talks, he's speaking as the president of the Republic of Kenya. I wish you are referring the president's statement with the Salva Kiir's statement, the president of, is it South Sudan or Sudan?
Now we're talking about Sudan.
Sudan the president, who is the current president of Sudan now?
Well, the generals.
The generals and whatever.
Yes.
I wish you were comparing our president's statement with the statement of the generals in Sudan, because that is the level that you will get the facts right. It is like probably even me as a member of parliament, and then I put a statement and one of my campaigners back home also contradicts me, and then you say, who is speaking the truth between the member of parliament and my chief campaigner in the constituency? Certainly I will be having more facts, isn't it? But for sure, we need the exports. The question would be, even if they were suspended, how much would it cost Kenya in terms of the volumes that we export to that country? But when the president puts the record straight from where I sit, that should be the official statement until it is proved otherwise by another statement at that level. You say, you never know at the lower level, at the embassy level, at the consular level, what they're these are individuals. They could be leaning towards one side or the other. But at least for presidents, they're acting for the whole republic. They're not acting for a faction of a section. And whatever happened in Kenya was for peace building, isn't it? Which is still good for their country, you see. Because at one point we need to bring people together. As it happened in Kenya, I believe the tranquility that we've had for the few months now it's because of the broad-based arrangement where everybody feels included in the government. And that would also be good for Sudan if it happens. Yeah. If the warring factions agree at one point that for sure this is our country, we cannot go destroying our country, we need to move our country, the people suffering are our people, they are Sudanese who are suffering, that is the way to go. And for sure, there is no any other person within this community, within this part of the Sahara, who can actually bring people together when it comes to management of warring functions or warring population. That is the current president that we have.
So you don't know where we were coming from. Kenya hosting one of the factions, because the optics.
You see, Jesse, when it comes to negotiations, how do you do it? You cannot bring two warring sides together at the same point. If you have done some bit of negotiation and peace building, I would want to hear your story. I hear your story. I then navigate on how I can bring you together. It has to start from somewhere. Otherwise, to say that you need to bring them together in the first instance, you certainly can't do that. And these processes take time. And that is the way the diplomacy works. The first thing, if I can remember my few lessons on diplomacy, is let's sit. In any negotiation, you need to sit down. Sit with this one, sit with the other one, you see how to navigate, bring them together. But for sure, the talking process, the discussions that our president is initiating for Sudan, it is good for Sudan, it is good for Kenya, it is good for Africa. And peace in Sudan is peace for everybody, for sure.
So Basil, as you come in, do you take any issue with the fact that perhaps the president gave this directive and yet the embassy has given a different directive? Because why would an embassy contradict the head of state if it was in fact factual, you know?
You see, when you have an embassy, their role is to represent interests of their nation. And in this case, if the president feels that what the directive given by Sudan is not true, then he can prove with records showing us that we are exporting and our balance of trade with the Sudan is healthy. So in principle, what happened after the diplomatic tiff, immediately Sudan declared that they're not going to import any products from Kenya. And that stands, basically. Because it was also wrong, I want to disagree with my friend, and I speak from a point of information, having served a number of countries globally. If you are solving any disputes between two functions, you cannot invite one function and actually host it in your country, and that function is already under sanctions from the international community. So it shows, in principle, you are completely watering down the principles of diplomacy and engagement at that level. So what the press should have done is to bring the two functions, nominees from both functions, and have a mediation discussion with them. But when you bring one function and you give them a state kind of reception, then you actually escalate the whole situation. And that is what has resulted to where we are. We are actually losing millions of dollars in this exchange. It's only that we are trying to lie to ourselves. So let's be honest to ourselves, because as I've said, whatever we do now, generations to come will judge us either harshly or softly, because we are not doing it for our own sake. He's not a leader just now. He's going to be remembered by the mark he's going to leave on whatever he does. The same applies to me. But you see, when we try to politicize all issues, that is so wrong. And I think it's good to be honest to ourselves. Put yourself in our country. Assume Ethiopia, the time when Raila Odinga, the Azimio, me, I'm from the Azimio side. The time when Raila Odinga were at loggerhead with the president. And then you have Ethiopia, or even Tanzania or Uganda, hosting Raila, maybe in Uganda or in Tanzania, and giving him a state kind of reception there. And here in the country, we are there's acrimony between the two leaders. What kind of message will Tanzania be sending to Kenya for that matter? Do you think this kind of bilateral relation will exist? The answer is no. So let's not try to hide from the reality and become escapists for no good reason. If things are bad, say it's wrong. You see, you should own and say, I did wrong, and perhaps apologize, and then try to build the relation between the two nations. Remember, we need a peaceful Sudan. I once served with the UNHCR when the UN refugee agency, and I happened to support the refugees from Sudan. So I know what happens. The moment you have instability with your neighbors, that brings influx of refugees or asylum seekers. And the same asylum seekers or refugees bring benefits and demerits. For example, if they come here, crime level could also go up. All issues to do with depending already on overstretched resources. So there are so many disadvantages when you have neighbors who are not ATPs, and here you want to progress as a nation, So let's not just try to cover issues because of our political affiliation.
You see here, probably we'll need to refer to a diplomat per se, because as I've said, in any conflict resolution, you cannot just start by calling all the two groups at the same time. Surely, how would you bring them?
Look at what
you need to get. What is
we can
your
refer,
bone of
we can
contention?
refer you.
What is your bone of contention?
Yes, that's what I want to tell him. Refer to how Kofi Annan solved the issue in Kenya.
No, but he didn't come and meet all of them together.
He brought all the groups. He listened to all of them.
No. Let's be very honest. He came, met Raila, met Kibaki. From there, they nominated their people, and from there, now they started the process. That is the way it goes, if you were to take that example. 1. 2, you don't compare the President of Republic of Kenya and compare him to Raila going to Sudan or going to Tanzania or going to South Africa. That is a different issue. But here, you are talking of two warring parties in a country. Also, remember that if we are to look at it geographically, we don't border Sudan, per se. So we would be really acting on good faith for their own benefit, for their own good, and of course, business both ways, because it's not that we only export to Sudan. I believe we must be also importing from them. So when they ban, it's not that they also don't suffer the consequences, you see. But as it stands, the president's statement is the correct position until proved otherwise by a statement at that level. Otherwise, then we'll be quoting every Tom, Dick, and Harry and saying this is the official statement.
But it's a number. Okay, anyway, give or take, I am just a moderator here. I would take sides. Allow us to take a short break. As we come back, we continue with the deliberations right here in studio. Do stay with KTN Prime.